Hello, welcome to Island Doctors Tai Chi. You may bring your hands to your hips and start your figure 8 if you've watched before. If you have not watched before and this is one of your first classes, we're trying to make a figure 8 with our hips, meaning our hips would be drawing a figure 8. If I had a pen in my hand and just letting my hand go along for the ride, I'm not moving it, my hips are moving my hand, I would be drawing a figure 8. So there's this movement, your front of your hip comes out, circles around, then you draw that line, and it goes to the back of that hip and then circles around and draw the line. So you're making a circle with each side of your hip, and then you can just let that flow, taking nice deep breaths. And I have to shift my feet apart a little bit to make it more comfortable for myself. You don't have to have your feet open as wide, and you don't have to have your knees bent as low. And then coming into constant bear, we let our arms move side to side. Your head and your neck stay forward, and I'm still continuing to make this figure 8 with my hips. Have you stop and come into Wuji. Inhaling your arms up, exhaling them down. One more time, inhale up and exhale down. I'm going to have you start by bringing your hands onto the inside of your knees. So you're kind of pressing, you're holding your spine up. And then for some of you, this might be enough. And this might be significantly challenging. So if it's too challenging, come up a little bit. If not, you can sink right down. And then depending on your ability and what you're able to do, you can bring your heart toward the floor and circle and come up. And then circle and come up. And like I said, this is challenging. So you can just do that once, or you can do it twice with me. This is really good for your thoracic spine. Coming up and then standing up and coming into Wuji. Bringing your hands to your hips. I'll have you look over one shoulder and then the other. Coming into Wuji. Bringing your hand to your hip, bringing your hand palm face up. I'm going to start that figure 8 with my hips, and then I'm going to move my arm accordingly. When I come back this way, my arm goes out. Then reverse sides, other arm up. And we're going to go from number 6 into Wuji. Bringing your hand to your hip. I'm going to work on number 5 now. We're going to switch arms. So doing so in a way that doesn't completely stop your rhythm. Coming into Wuji. And if you step a foot out, we'll do our So I really have come to like this analogy of playing with taffy. If you're playing with taffy, there's like a little bit of resistance that you're moving through and pulling back and forth on than if you're just going through air. So I kind of like that analogy that we talk about in my classes of moving through taffy. It's like you're pulling on taffy, you're pushing it and you're pulling it, and that gives you a little bit of a tactile feeling. I'm going to have us change feet. We'll take our opposite foot out. And again, you're pulling through that taffy, separating it, circling those hips, working on your figure eight. It's a little bit trickier with one arm, with one foot stepped out from the other, but it still can be done. And then stepping back into Wuji. So we've been moving our hips in a circle. We've been doing this circle, 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 circle. So now we're going to pretend we have a hula hoop and we're just moving it in a circle. So there's no line in between. So it goes from one side back, side forward. So isolating your pelvis. And then you can reverse that direction. And then I'm going to have you stop, and you'll bring your pelvis forward and follow the curves of your spine. So bending your knees, following that curve. Coming into Wuji. I have to pause and fix my microphone because I don't want it to have that fabric noise while I'm talking. Okay, sorry about that. Hands on your hips. Bring one foot in, bend your knee, pivot, and lean. So this toes in movement that we just made, that's the movement that we do when we do our fishes and eights. We bring our foot in. So you can kind of think about as you're doing that. Forward, pivot, bend, lean. Coming into Wuji. I'm going to have you bring a foot out and make a shape with your hand. So your hand is just loose. No tension in your head and your neck and your shoulders. Then we bring this hand like a hook up. It passes and circles. So again, you have this circling, this figure eight in your hips. I'm not going to move my hand right now. My hip comes forward, it circles. Draw that line back into the other hip and then forward. So a lot of shifting of your weight. So if I just had my hand like I'm drawing, my hand is making a figure eight, but only because my hips are. My hand is simply going along for the ride. It is a little bit trickier to do your figure eight here when you have one foot stepped out in front of the other. But you will get it with practice. Your hips will get stronger. If you get tired, please always come out, move around, walk around. It might take a little while. You'll feel the difference in your body. You'll feel more fluid. You'll feel more mobile. And then we're just going to add that shape. So again, my hands are moving a little bit here, not a whole lot. Most of the movement, bringing them forward and back. And then again, this is fun to think like you're moving through taffy. You have taffy, you're stretching it, you're bringing it back together, separating it. And for me, I really like that tactile sensation. It makes me feel like I'm not just flinging my body around or flinging my arms around. I'm moving purposefully. Following my hand with my gaze, allowing my attention to be both inward and outward at the same time, quieting my mind. And then I'll have you switch sides. So bringing one foot out, making your shape really loose, comfortable hand. Other hand comes up. If you want to try the hips first before you add the arm motion, then please go ahead and work for a few moments here with your hips. And then as you start to get better at this, it doesn't have to be such a big movement. It can be more subtle. I'm trying to exaggerate it so you can see. I had that figure 8 that I'm drawing with my hips. I'm going to add my arms. Stepping into Wu Ji. I'm going to have you bring your feet so you're comfortable. I'm going to step mine out a little bit wider than I used to, just because when I move my hips, this base works for me. So first we're going to add our hips. And then just try to let your upper body be as loose and as comfortable as possible. See if you can feel almost like your whole upper body is just along for the ride. You're planted in your feet, you're rooted. You feel confident, your feet aren't going to slip, they feel like they have strength. And then your legs are getting stronger. Your legs are getting stronger because you're using them in a way that stimulates the muscle growth. You're putting pressure and weight on them. You're kind of leaning into them. That makes those bones healthier. You're moving your hips, which is helping move that tissue. It's taking those hips and making them more flexible. So you're very grounded here, and then your power is in your lower body. Your upper body from here up is loose. You're not holding tension anywhere. And then what I'm going to have you do is add an arm. So I'll have you take one of your arms, and we're going to do our figure 8, and then as you move, your arm comes along for the ride. And then what I'm going to have you do is add your other arm, which gets a little bit more complicated because you're keeping this beautiful rhythm. And I'm going to have to slow my body down to do this. And then you can have that tactile feeling, that sense like you have a big pile of taffy in front of you and you're pulling on it, you're shaping it. It's a little sticky. You have to move through it. It's not like moving through empty space. And then I'm going to have you come into Wuji. So you're going to do this a few more times. 1, 2, 3. And then release your arms down. Come into Wuji. And then if you're tired from standing there like that, oh, you can move your legs around a little bit. Getting a little exercise today. And then I'm going to have you stand for a moment. We're going to step so that you're comfortable. And we are going to do number 23. So at number 23, I have to start, we're going to make a beak with our hand. I have to start by rolling my hand on my hip first. For me, it's just my way of starting. So I have to do this because my arm is going to be doing something completely different on this side. And I have that figure 8 going on with my hips. So I add that. So I get comfortable with that movement. And then I'm adding my shoulder as a wave. So it waves up and down. And then we'll do the same thing. The other side, bringing the other foot out. I have to start making my little beak, circling my wrist on my hip. This is just really good movement for your wrist. It's supported on your hip, so you get a nice little twist in there. And then I have to bring myself into my figure 8 hips and let my arm go along for the ride. You can even reverse that if you want. So taking that shoulder and doing it the other way, but I don't know how. I'm lucky I can do it one way. And then stepping back into Wuji. I thank you for joining me for class today. I'm going to have you do Wuji a couple times. And then what I'm going to have you do is bring your hands out in front of you, palms face up. You're bringing your fingertips in toward your heart center, flipping them around. Palms face up. Now they come under your armpit like we do in number 6. Your thumbs are up facing the ceiling. And you drop them. And then do it one more time. So your head, your neck, your shoulders, your arms have no tension. You drop them like they don't even belong to you. Taking all this energy, all this chi, all this prana, Thank you. Thank you for joining me.